Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Poly Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and we've got a very interesting show scheduled for this week. We're going to be talking about, I don't know the answer to that question. We're going to be talking about contact centers, but I don't remember because I was chastised for calling it that about 4 or 5 years ago, whether we call it contact centers or customer experience centers now, and what's changed and what's going on with all this very interesting space. I have two terrific guests, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a second. Both Josh Stanley from Zoom and Andre Reed, my colleague from Poly. So, Josh, why don't you take it away? Introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hi, David, thank you for having me. Josh Stanley, I lead sales strategy for our sales specialists that cover the contact center. So I focus exclusively on identifying what gaps we have in terms of people, product, and process. And I work within our organization to be able to help solve those in our go-to-market strategy.
Terrific, Josh. Thanks very much. A pleasure to have you on the show. And Andre, we haven't spoken in a long time. You're up in Canada today. Tell us who you are and what you do for the people who don't.
Yep, no, thanks, and appreciate getting invited back after the first time around. That's always a great honor. So last time I spoke to you, I was managing our phone business and obviously worked very closely with Zoom and great sort of phone business and partnership we built out there. I've since had the great honor to move into the headset side of the Poly portfolio, and so I'm filling big shoes. I've taken over a wonderful portfolio and look forward to continue to evolve that, drive innovation, and have a tighter partnership with Zoom. So great to be on again, and thanks again, David.
Thanks, I appreciate it, gentlemen. So Josh, let's start with you. What are we calling it nowadays? Is it Customer Experience Center? Are we back to Contact Center? Did it just the name not stick? And what was the background behind all that?
I think it might depend on the actual deployment, right? So I think different customers deploy it different ways. So I think the general strategy of what the term is in the industry is experience, right? So around focus on engagements, focus on different types of contacts and bringing the omni-channel experience. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but in general, we want to deliver a complete omni-channel experience that gives the best possible engagements or interactions for customers.
And I honestly dream about, I look forward to the day that I'm going to be having one of these webcasts and not talk about the pandemic. But I have to bring it up at least for a minute right here to understand. I know I understand the concept of hybrid working and what happened, in general collaboration, but I'm sure there's also, a greater push to virtual contact centers, and or at least to virtualize some of it in the space right now. Would that be a fair comment?
Absolutely. I think when the pandemic first happened, of course, there was this big adjustment to figure out how do we support business like being in the office. And that was probably first driving things with connectivity. It was around keeping our employees engaged. So things like video meetings and chat and phone essentially transition into that conversation as well. How do I keep people connected and at the same time be able to improve the way they connect so that we can continue to maintain the business? And then, of course, we had to figure out ways to be able to stay connected with our customers. And clearly, as that shift happened, it opened the door for all types of challenges and issues that come as a result of the contact center. So it's getting our agents connected back. Today, I think the stat says 89% of agents are still connected to premise-based equipment. So when you start thinking about the fact that I've got to now connect them back through the firewall, get them connected, I'm reliant on the local internet connection. I'm reliant on what sort of connectivity I have back to the data center, and it creates a high friction experience, an inconsistent experience at times. And the more you can regulate that, the more you can simplify that. Of course, the better, more predictable outcomes you're going to have for those remote agents. But it's absolutely a driver for companies the past couple of years.
Yeah, Andre, you and I have been talking about that just briefly a couple of days ago. I recall we were also seeing some other changes around the hybridization of that, right? You had mentioned shorter work cycles were one of the things that we were running into. I just want to let you have a chance to talk about that for a second as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's a few things that I feel the time is so great for what Zoom's done, and sort of anecdotally, in the beginning of the pandemic, and I also look forward to when we stop talking about it and referring back to it. I have neighbors that are near retirement, and they're talking about Zoom happy hours. And so part of what's shifted here is not just employee and agents and the way we are as knowledge workers collaborating over video, but everybody is starting to build and have that experience and see the enlightenment that it brings in communicating. So I think the timing is amazing on the work from home trends, right? we've seen a number of things. The Great Resignation's been in the news. You're seeing agents being hired more on shorter term contracts, get employees up and running. So there's a different balance of how to train, how to engage, and how to make sure those agents are giving the most productive and delivering true experiences that those customers are trying to drive through their customer experience centers.
Yeah, and I like what my friend Tim Banting, who's an analyst with Omdia, said the other day, that we're moving from this concept of the great resignation to the concept now of the great experimentation. We're all trying new things to see what's going to work and what's going to stick. So it's an interesting time to be doing all this. So Josh, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I typically am wrong. First time out of my mouth. So I'll let me know. Is this the Zoom Contact Center offering, which it's new? It's new since February, correct?
Yeah, this product is new for sure. Zoom Contact Center, where I think we're 8 weeks in now, came out in late February. But we've been offering light contact center functionality for a while now. So Zoom Phone launched 3 years ago. We announced in September we surpassed 2 million paid users in the fourth quarter. So we announced in our earnings report in February, the last 90 days, over that period of time, we'd sold over 550,000 seats of Zoom Phone. So clearly not new. We also, a little over a year ago, launched a license it's an add-on license called PowerPack. Now, PowerPack adds some additional functionality onto a traditional basic phone user. So it adds things like live reporting. It adds things like a second channel to be able to support queues. You can now have text messages into a call queue. Just like receiving an inbound voice call, you could receive an inbound text and have anyone that's a part of that queue that has that license be able to respond to that text into that same queue number. So some functionality has been added into the Zoom Phone and the PowerPack that would support, internal type call centers. I mean, you said it best, right? What are we calling it today's? And I think it comes down to what the experience, what's the requirement. An internal IT help desk or an HR support line, those are fairly basic needs. Internal calling capabilities to be able to do some simple, a routing based on skills, some live reporting to ensure that from a supervisor standpoint, we're staffing those lines. We can absolutely deliver those with a Zoom Phone and a PowerPack solution. It's when you start getting into that more advanced need to route based on things like skills or multi-level IVRs, where you're going to get more advanced in terms of that call flow. That's where the contact center steps in, and that's where we can start getting far more advanced in terms of things like database dips and HTTP calls and APIs that allow you to be able to more intelligently route that customer's inquiry to the best possible agent at the best possible time to be able to have that first call resolution to ensure that's a happy customer as soon as they drop that line or that video call, because Zoom can clearly offer that, or coming soon, things like SMS and chat into that agent queue as well.
So that we were talking about that a couple of days ago, I remember, and that's funny because most of the contact center offerings in the world that have added video sort of as a bolt-on. They existed the way they were, and then there's this third party or this additional piece that gets put on. And I think Zoom is the first, or one of the first, to kind of go in the other direction. First you develop video, then you developed excellent telephony on top of that, and now you're adding the contact center features on top of that.
Yeah, of course, I support the contact center. Prior to that, supported phone, but I hear that Zoom is pretty good at video too. That's what people tell me. Clearly, it's the standard and what people kind of went to during the pandemic. And it would be silly for us to launch a product that didn't support our core product. And that's how we want to differentiate. We differentiate in two areas every time we enter a new market. We want to focus on simplicity. Right now, there's nothing easy about the contact center. I get that. But we can compare two products next to each other and we can tell which one is more intuitive, more simple for the agent, the supervisor, and the administrator to manage. Right. So we want to focus on reducing that friction and providing the most simple solution possible. And then the second thing we want to do is we want to disrupt through the use of video, right? And I believe it's no better time. And video has been inserted into the contact center now for a decade or more. The reality is it hasn't picked up because of all the friction that's involved. And you nailed it, David. The reason that friction exists is because it's bolt-on, add-on technology that runs in parallel to the core contact center technology. And that's, as a result, creates friction for agents, it creates friction for users, and it certainly creates friction for customers. And it's not, video is not adopted in the contact center, not because it's not of value, not of use. It's because it's just not provided in a way that's intuitive and simple and provides incremental value on top of voice, right? If it's less predictable on top of voice or chat or SMS, the people aren't going to use it. So we want to be able to add it into the solution as a core part that certainly just works the way it should work every single time. And I think we've done that with the contact center. And this is not suggesting in any way that you go out and video enable every one of your call center agents. That's not the intention of this. What we're looking at is creative ways that you could use this to improve the way you connect and service customers, as well as the way you connect with them in the prospect stage, right? Pre-sales. We're working with customers today that are looking to shorten their sales cycle. Well, what better way to do that than on your website, launch a live demo that comes right into a qualified sales rep or engineer, whatever that may be, connect with them over video, share your screen, show the product, answer their questions. And instead of 6 days later, hopefully getting a demo scheduled, 6 minutes later, you're able to move that customer out of stage 0 in your sales process and on to stage 1, 2, or 3, depending on where they are.
And you said it briefly, but I really don't want to gloss over it. This concept of the minimal friction for the IT administrator. Can you think of how much easier a company's IT administrator is if they're managing all of their video calls and all of their chat and all of their phone calls and now all their contact center on a single admin platform? That's got to be something that's pretty universal, universally accepted and appreciated, considering where we've been coming from.
Yeah, I think it's probably good to think of it from the admin view, but that's really a select group of people. And certainly there's a lot of advantages. We can talk about a single pane of glass to be able to manage all of that. But there's more than that, right? Is getting those two systems to work together. Of course, if I just have to log into two different places and everything worked simple between those two, you could argue that it's not a big value add. But simply having it in one admin portal is a nice checkbox. But now being able to automatically have those two systems or 3 systems or 4 systems talk to each other so that I can simplify the way I add new users, right? The way in which I give them access to analytics and tools. I don't have to go to multiple places and pull it together. What I'm ultimately doing there is building bridges over islands of communication technology. And of course, we know the minute I build a bridge between 2 islands and upgrade one of those islands, I get broken bridges, right? I get friction involved in the process, and that creates the frustration that's involved with users. And but in addition to an admin, there's tons of benefit for the user as well. You talked earlier about remote agents, right? Clearly a thing not only now, but long into the future. We know from a Metrigy study last year that 73%, nearly 3 out of every 4 companies expect to continue to support remote agents even after the pandemic, right? So this is here. It's not going anywhere. And we have to think from an agent's perspective, how do we keep them connected? Keep them connected to other agents, keep them connected to their supervisor, keep them connected to the back office that's operationally supporting them with those more complex, challenging questions that the customer has into the contact center. So nothing better than connecting that front office employee that's talking to customers with that back office employee that's supporting them. Then Zoom meetings, Zoom chat, Zoom phone, right? Now Zoom contact center is inserted in that one application, one management pane of glass. But even bigger than that is behind both of those is one core architecture that's supporting those two. Very few bridges now that we have to build between those systems, and that's what the friction comes from.
I know it's a very slick suite, but let me get you back into the conversation because in my old days, in my broadcasting days, when I built TV studios and engineered things, we used to talk about satellite and fiber backhaul, and we were always talking about this concept of the last mile. Okay, great, you can get me across the country, but how do you get me up into my building? And when we talk about unified communications, whether we're talking contact center or any part of it, it's not the last mile, is like the last foot or two. If you have the best suite and the best platform, but the tools that you're using to get from the digital world to the analog world of our eyes and ears are not the best, you're not going to get a good experience. And that's something that we focus on quite a bit at Poly, correct?
Yeah, no doubt, and I'll touch a bit about some of what Josh is mentioning just before that, right? So part of what I love and as product management, we're always thinking about the use cases and the end user, and even the improvement this brings to the agent experience and the supervisor coaching and being able to connect, right? So much of the Great Resignation and the onboarding experience is building up that agent team and the way that their morale comes through and is expressed to the people calling in and communicating, right? That's so huge to be able to connect all of that and improve it. And from my side, from a video perspective, you can build relationships a lot easier over video. And right, so if you think about, currently those coaches, it used to be they walk around a floor and it's a 1 to 24. Right now it's a 1 to 1, right? A 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 that coach has to do. So the coaching now is even more important to bring those agents up to speed to better support customers. So to me, I'm just totally in love with this, and so it's just so great from a last mile perspective, right? Some of what Polly and we think about it, and we start talking about we are what the end customer, your agent in this case, see, feel, hear for us, right? And so the things we focus on are around agent longevity of years, duration of use on the calls, um, how their emotions, how their tone comes across both ways. We want to make sure we have full duplex audio. One of the worst things that creates frustration is when you have talk over. So these are all things that we've been doing and focusing on for years. The contact center business has been such a big part of Poly's history. It's something that we've had teams built up around and portfolios built up around. And it's going to be something that we continue to do and really be looking to our partnership with Zoom to improve this for all of the agents and all of these contact centers out there.
And we got a lot of different models of headsets that work in the contact center space, and some of the crossover between the UC space and the contact center space based on the persona and the requirement of the agent. Correct?
Yeah, and it's changing, right? So we absolutely have contact center, massive reliability made for people that have been working here for years and years and years. We have the ability to, change over ear cups and replace those. But part of the shift that we've seen with working from home is we're seeing different trends, right? It used to be everyone wanted a monaural, one, ear, right, and one boom. Now we're seeing more and more people in the work from home that want a binaural. They want to block out other noises. We've seen the desire to move up the range from a noise cancellation, right? So part of agents working from home is you don't want the end customers calling in to know agents are working at home. Maybe in the middle of starting the pandemic, everyone was supporting of that, but that's not the case anymore. We have to bring that level of professionalism back up. So we've seen a few different changes, right? We've seen more UC specific headsets going out. We've seen more binaural, and then we've seen a movement up in the noise cancellation capabilities. So a few different trends going on, and it's all about bringing that professional experience for agents and callers.
And it's also interesting in that I'm a Poly employee, so I'm a power user. I can probably spit and hit 14 headsets right now, but I see that that's not just me going forward. The people that are moving around and working from anywhere in the new hybrid world that we're in don't just have a headset now. They have a headset that they use when they're working at their home office, and they have a headset that they use when they're traveling on the road, and they have a headset that they use when they're wired, and a headset they use when they're wireless, and maybe one with a little bit of a preference for traveling and listening to music versus. So, I mean, like I said, I happen to be doing the show on a Voyager right now, but I often use the Blackwire headset because it just fits a little bit better sometimes. So we're starting to see people have multiple tools. Like they don't just carry a hammer; they carry a hammer and a screwdriver and maybe a staple gun too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's great for us. I don't know if there's a question there, a statement. I would agree with your statement. Great.
I just want to make sure
Poly.
that I'm seeing trends, that it's not just me being crazy because I have all these headsets around me.
Yeah, I think there's certainly that, and then there's probably another dynamic that flows into what you're saying, right? I think at the start of the pandemic, and man, I really do look forward to when we stop referring into it. There was I need a headset. Get me whatever headset I can get to work from home. And some of that was consumer grade, right? Some of it was of lower standards and quality. And so we're starting to see now in as companies are truly defining hybrid work, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little out of the contact center piece here specifically, but they're really starting to design that in, and they're getting back to, I need to standardize on a headset set of a family or a set of models, and I'm going to bring, as an IT admin or an IT administrator in a contact center, I'm going to bring these 5, you can choose from these, right? Stop with the buy your own, bring it into the platform that you're using, right? And then they can better control that entire experience end to end. So we're starting to see that come back now, as the ITs and offices are really, and facilities, really designing that return to the office and the hybrid working for the long term, because we're never going back to how it was, to 73%, continuing the work from home trends.
Okay, so now let's tie both of these two conversations that we had together because we want to talk about this concept of Poly and Zoom. And I know that as Zoom comes out with products and services, that Poly works hand in hand and make sure that our hardware is certified to work on them and working together. I know we have a lot of certifications. Andre, you can talk about that, and Josh, the process. I know that the contact center piece is new, so a lot of that's being developed. So which one of you wants to let me know about how well we're working together?
Yeah, I'll take first stab, right? I mean, I've been coming from the phone side, as I mentioned in my intro, right? And in that, I was legacy Polycom. We had been building a very strong relationship in the video side with Zoom, and then we really expanded that with the phones. And then the headsets came together as we became Poly, and we've leveraged so many of those strong relationships that we've had in the past. And so we've been building our headset platform into the Zoom phone, as we were talking about earlier, and then that's getting inherited into a lot of the contact center pieces. And so we make sure that the Zoom team has as many Poly headsets as they possibly can in their development sites, in their product hands, in their sales hands. And so we have a wonderful alliance team. We do QBRs, we do weekly engineering syncs and working work stream teams. So really love the partnership and the relationship we have, and we'll continue to make sure that we are the continued lead endpoint partner for Zoom, which we are today.
Yeah, I would just add, obviously from a product perspective, it's critical that we're working through that process before we're releasing new features, new functionality, because we got to make sure that it works together and we don't create issues as a result. And there's a lot of work that goes involved in terms of planning that. So kudos to both teams that do that. I'm not on that side. I'm on the sales side. And I can tell you, we are lockstep with both sales organizations at a leadership level, to account management level, to post-sales and support level. There's a lot of cooperation that happens on both sides to ensure that we're delivering the best possible experience for the customer that they want to deliver to their customers, their end users.
Yeah, and you have to admit that because you're looking at the background that Andre's using. You've got the Poly and the Zoom, and it's together, and I've seen that slide now for a few years. So Josh, I'm going to give you kind of the last word on this thing. Is what's the elevator pitch? What do you want people to take away from the idea of hearing today about Zoom Contact Center working with Poly headsets, and Zoom Phone working with the Poly phone with some of the great features? What's your 3 or 4 or 5 sentence elevator pitch that you really want people to leave with today?
Yeah, I would say that our goal is to be able to deliver a very rich, robust, capable experience that can tie into the workflows that you'd like it to be able to customize it in your environment. We're bringing both the collaboration and the UC piece and the contact center piece together, one application delivered from one single management pane of glass, all delivered and supported on a single core architecture across the entire platform. I mean, we don't use that term lightly. Platform is not a collection of multiple islands with bridges. It's a true single core architecture that helps us to be able to move fast and aggressive and deliver on customer experiences that they're asking for. And of course, the one key difference that will be very obvious to a lot of people in a very short period of time is how we deliver video and to the agent that can change the way in which you connect with your customers. That's clearly a big difference, and how easy that can be to manage and implement in your environment to be able to improve on the personalized experience that you deliver to your customers.
Okay, that's great. So now let me get some more information for the people that are watching today. First of all, Josh, if somebody wants to find out more about Zoom Contact Center, what should they do?
Best and most logical place is to go to the website, zoom.us. We have a product page there that you can click on the contact center. We've got a lot of great information. We have webinars that are coming up that you can join and watch live sessions where we're both reviewing the product as well as reviewing the strategy and the vision of the product. And then in there, you'll be able to click on contact us and engage with an online account executive that can begin the process of linking the correct account team that's supporting your account. If you're already a Zoom customer, and you probably are, there's a lot of them, reach out to your existing account team that can support you. They can not only answer your questions about Zoom meetings and Zoom phone and Zoom chat and Zoom webinar and Zoom events, and recently released just yesterday, Zoom IQ, a very exciting way to be able to get lessons learned from your Zoom meetings, to be able to improve and coach and develop your organization to be able to improve their customer communication. So fantastic time to look at Zoom, not only for the contact center, but a lot of other exciting products.
That's great advice. And Josh, if somebody wants to reach out to you personally, are you on social media, or do you have an email, or how do you want somebody to do it?
I am on social media for the most part. If you call that LinkedIn is what I typically gravitate to. Love to connect, love to answer your questions. Feel free to reach out and be happy to respond. You're also welcome to reach out to me. My email is just my full name, josh.stanley, Stanley, @zoom.us.
Josh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you on the show this week. Andre, I'm going to ask you the same two questions. First, if somebody wants to find out more information about the awesome Poly headsets and telephones and some of the other devices that we provide, how can they get more information?
Yep, no, that's an easy one. Poly.com/headsets. Best place to start. You can go down, select contact center, select UC, select your platform. You can go and pick the right headset for your typical use case or personas. So do that. And then obviously, if you want to get a hold of me, it's David Danto at, it's andre.reed@poly.com. So, and happy to connect with any of the folks in this audience here.
That's terrific. Yeah, I'm part of the group that if not, knowledge of the problem is ownership of the problem. Somebody reaches out to me, we don't let it go until we solve it. So anybody can always reach out to me. I say that on all of these shows. Just Google my name. I've got about 19 emails, and I'm on all social platforms, and I love chatting with customers. And in fact, next week, I'm going to be at the National Association of Broadcasters Conference, and we'll be talking about all of the things that I learned when I went to school for broadcasting that are all now just part of the cameras that we sell you, and I didn't need to learn all that to begin with. Andy Mace will be on the show talking about Director AI and how wonderful all of those technologies are that I'm looking at the broadcast conference and realize that we probably don't need anymore. And then a couple of weeks from now, I will be at ISE in Barcelona, another opportunity to run into me and say hi and tell us how your Poly products are working. So for everyone at Poly, thank you very much for joining us this week, and we will see you next week from NAB on Poly Weekly News. Thanks a lot.